high sex drive tells, not sex positive, not we had a wild weekend on vacation, high sex drive women. And again, there's high sex drive women and there's sex positive women, and they're not always the same thing. You know, your high sex drive women can have enough bad experiences that they still have a high sex drive. They're kind of like down on sex. They're not sex positive. But what you're looking for and what we're talking about today is both high sex drive and sex positive women. And there's not a lot of them out there, because a high sex drive woman is very much like a natural athlete. There's going to be certain things that she kind of has to show. Everything has to come together. She has to be genetically predisposed to it. She has to be somewhat physically fit. I've never seen a girl that's like out of shape with a high sex drive. Again, you know, when you're in shape, you do feel better. You have to be brought up in an environment that isn't out of control. It gives you some guardrails, and you think that this would be the opposite, but it gives girls some safety, and they don't get ran through early on. Because they have a high sex drive, they tend to experiment more, but they can also start having bad experiences, and too many bad experiences ruin a girl. She becomes very negative, and down on things, so she won't actually explore things. So there's all kinds of things. You know, she has to be in the right environment where she can kind of experiment. And all these things have to come together, and you end up with a high sex drive girl. But generally, there are certain tells, number one being bisexual. And research has shown that girls that tend to identify as bisexual, and truly not like pillow princesses, or, you know, they do it for the camera, for attention when they're in college, but are truly compelled to be with women as much as men. Not bi-curious, like I said, picking girls up, experimenting, toys, fisting, the whole 9 yards. Girls that are truly hardcore bisexual will tend to have a higher sex drive. It's not complete, but this is a tell. And one of the guys responded to me just yesterday that he had ran into a girl that ended up being bisexual and is pretty much on all the time. 2, this is where the natural inclination, the natural abilities come in. Multi-orgasm, easy to climax. Your girls that pretty much you can show up and they have orgasm through penetration, through clitoral stimulation, through nipple stimulation. They're just very easily orgasmic, as opposed to your girls that are like, and they'll have multiple orgasms as well, because this feeds into wanting to do this more often, as opposed to your girl that, like, it takes her 30 minutes. She has to have the vibrator just right. You can't be making any noise. The windows have to be closed. You know, girls that are there's a stipulation. Everything has to be just right, and they're one and done, which we've seen before, and then they're rolling off the bed. It's not conducive to someone who has high sex drive. High sex drive is going to be somebody that it just kind of comes easy. Literally, they come easily. Multiple orgasms and easy to climax. No holes barred. Generally, you'll see there's 3-hole girls. Everything is a go, as long as you don't like ruin it for them by being overly aggressive, like on the back door. She will be open to always being open to anything you'd like to do. She has a very high disgust threshold. And as girls get turned on, their disgust threshold goes up, which is one of the reasons they can't like talk about sex when they're not turned on, because it will throw them. Their disgust threshold, as they become more aroused, goes up. They're able to stand more things that would actually kind of like gross them out if they weren't aroused, will not gross them out when they are aroused and in that environment. So you will find girls that can do more and it doesn't bother them. And high sex drive girls tend to have a very high disgust threshold. Always on, they never decline sex. You're just not going to find it, no matter what. You're talking about like hours or days after giving birth. They're like, it's blowjobs, hand jobs, whatever they can physically do. And most women are like, mortified by this whole thing. Again, this is why they're high sex drive girls, and there's not a lot of them. Again, they are always on. Flu, accidents. They've been up for 36 hours, you name it. They're always open to suggestion. Pics, videos, anytime, anywhere. And this is just one of those weird things where, again, I guess it may fall under the high disgust threshold. Is pretty much they're okay with this stuff rolling, and they'll watch some of it. I mean, again, there's girls, when you do pictures and videos with girls, and I always, if guys are interested in this, I say most of the time the girls will not want to watch it with you. They just don't want to see themselves. Most high sex drive girls are pretty like visually stimulated, much like men, which is why they tend to be more high sex drive. And so they'll go with pretty much any pics and videos, anytime, anywhere. They're just down with it. It just seems to work. So those are the things that you can look for when you're looking for, if you are looking for a high sex drive girl. Again, it's almost like trying to find like natural athletes. There's going to be a genetic, an environment, and a background and component that kind of brings it all together. So there's not a lot of them. They kind of all have to be like, there has to be certain things in the right place at the right time for them to make it into adulthood and retain that high sex drive and that willing to experiment. So that's the real deal on high sex drive tells. Bunny and I may cover that a little bit more on Thursday. It's always good to hear her, because she is the sex expert on, and this list was compiled between her and I, on what works, what doesn't work, especially when it comes to high sex drive girls. And a lot of guys go, I thought I wanted that, but then I got it and it's exhausting. So you kind of have to know yourself. And some guys are like, I don't want to have anything to do with that. I want something that I kind of control, because you're going to have sex that you don't initiate necessarily with high sex drive girls. And you got to be there. It's a daily thing. So just take that into consideration.